Hello my fellow hunters, welcome to the Fatalis tips video. I do have a previous video on Fatalis' basic moves and things to consider during the fight, but for this one I want to talk about some key things that will help you be successful in each phase when hunting the legendary black dragon. So jumping right on in, let's talk about the prep for the hunt first and then I'll go through each phase. Right off the bat, make sure you have high fire resistance. He has very high damage from his fire attacks, so I would just eat out for element large. My community and I determined that making custom meals for Moxie and Element L is great, especially for duos or 4-mans. For solo, Moxie may or may not be worth it since you may or may not have time to heal, depending if he's aggroed and doing successive attacks. It really comes down to luck for that one. Jewel wise, Part Breaker would be great as the head breaks are crucial in this hunt. If you can break one horn before phase 3, you will see a significant reduction in his fire damage. For solos, Divine Blessing is nice if you can fit it on. Any chance of survival against this guy is huge. So if you're going to put it on, max it out. Especially if you get Fatalis' armor after, you can definitely fit it in. If you haven't unlocked Fatalis' armor, you don't need Divine Blessing for duos or 4-man. Just make sure everyone has Dust of Light and you should all watch out for each other. Speaking of Dust of Light, it's your best friend. A quick heal in this hunt is super helpful, especially since he has so many successive attacks before you have an opening to fully heal. Although there is a way to create openings with Dragon Podge, which I'll mention later. So yeah, I'd recommend you bring the materials to craft Dust of Light, which are Gloam Grass and God Bugs. Fortify is another great skill that I think you can use if you're struggling with damage on your first clear. The special assignment gives you 5 lives, so you can't afford to die twice and utilize Fortify. In the event quest, you only have 3 lives, so I'd say it's not really worth it since your goal will be to survive as much as possible. If you are in a team, I would recommend at least one person gets max heavy artillery jewels on their build, and they are the person that will be using all the cannons and roaming ballistas. Heavy artillery doubles the damage, and this includes the Dragonator at the end as well. It is huge damage for the team. Rocksteady and Temporal are really nice in this hunt. They just kind of give you an opening to keep attacking. I would have at least one of these. If you're using Switch Axe, obviously have both. The other mantles aren't too helpful. I do use Glider though for jewel slots. I just max out peak performance with it, so my damage is boosted. Last thing here, I have found Mighty Pills to be helpful as well. They are a big damage boost for 20 seconds, and in this hunt particularly, his knocks are preceded by a huge falling animation. That is literally enough time for you to eat a pill, and then you can go Kirito Starburst stream on his head like crazy. Now, we'll move on to the tips of what you should be doing each phase to be successful, but before that, one key tip is that he drops quite a bit of Dragon Pods, and I gotta say, it is super effective against him. They stun him like crazy. 2 Dragon Pod shots is enough to make the King Wiggler wiggle his head and flinch back, and this will literally stop like 98% of his attacks. So it gives your team some breathing room to reset, heal, or just get ready for another attack. Alright, phase 1. It's really about damaging Fatalis and learning his moves. You have cannons set up at the edge of the map, and the main strategy I've seen a lot of people use is that one team member with heavy artillery on their build will go down with a ghillie mantle and load these cannons. Then the other teammates drop in and they attack Fatalis and bring him to the cannons. If you do that and if you get 7 cannonballs on him, you will get a knock, and that's instantly a lot of head damage that you can get in the first phase. If you miss any of the cannonballs, there's a ballista just to the right of the cannons. You can use that to get a few more shots on his chest and it should get a knock on him. At this point, you want to just do as much head damage as you can. Now, getting cannon damage is great to make an opening, but also while they're being loaded, your teammates can actually come in and do a wall bang at the start. Wall bangs are huge damage, so if you're doing the solo, make sure to do this before you use the cannons. In phase 1 and 2, you want to hit all those wall bangs to make sure you break the horn before phase 3. If Fatalis is on 4 legs, any slinger you put into his head will actually send him rushing into that direction that he's looking. So that's your best chance for the wall bang. If he's on his hind legs though, instead of missing or waiting for him to get on 4, you can actually clutch claw and shoot slinger armor immediately, which will bring him down to all 4 without losing the enrage, that someone else can follow up and then knock him into the wall. A key thing to note here is that if he is on his hind legs, so his 2 back legs, don't turn him. If you turn him and then shoot the slinger armor, he might have a chance of enraging then. So, coordinate with your team, have one person bring him to all 4, and then the second person can just send him. After this, the rest of phase 1 is pretty much just chest damage to make him fall over, and then head damage until he goes to his ultimate. Then you can hide in the top right corner of the map. It's a big metal door with a little bit of cover. Now, the other thing I'll mention that you can get mounts on Fatalis as well. The first mount is definitely worth it. The second one is possible, but it may or may not be worth the loss of damage. Mounting does create a big knock opening to hit the head, so I would do it at least once to make sure your team can get some extra head damage in. Even in solo, I think it's worth it since the mount knock is quite long and you don't fall too far away from him. I always have time to mount, not fall off, eat a mighty pill, and then burst damage. Moving on to phase 2 now, this opens up the rest of the map, although the Dragonator can't be used until phase 3. The roaming ballista is actually found on the right side of the map when phase 2 begins, and this thing deals extensive damage. It's really best to use at the start of phase 2 for 3 reasons. Number 1, it starts the cooldown timer, so at the end of the hunt you'll be able to use it again in phase 3. Number 2, he starts off phase 2 in the air, so if you hit all the ballista shots in the chest, you actually might be able to get him to knock down to the ground, which is again great head damage, and it saves you time while damaging. If this doesn't happen, it means you need a little bit more artillery damage from the cannons in the top right, or you use the ballistas again. What I've noticed is that each phase you can get a knock if you use all the heavy artillery properly. The last reason, if he's in the air, his attacks are actually easy to read, so you can dodge them well. He doesn't have any area clearing from the air, so if you and your team make sure you can weaken the chest, you should be able to aim his chest while flying. It's just easier to hit and get him to the ground quicker. If you're solo, be sure to weaken this part before using the ballista. The critical damage is absolutely key. A reminder here, the person that has the heavy artillery jewel should be the one using the heavy ballista and the cannons and the Dragonator. The rest of phase 2 is really just the priorities to hit the head whenever possible. If he's standing on his hind legs, use the dragon paws to stagger him. That creates an opening right on his chest that you guys can attack and get him back down on all 4 to open that head up. His fire ultimate in phase 2 will again burn the whole map, and you've got a couple seconds to run to the back of the map where the big gate is. You actually have to close this gate in order for everyone to be protected. So throughout this phase, try not to be fighting too much at the very far end of the edge of the map. Try to be close to the middle or closer to the wall in Dragonator so you can easily just jump back and get behind the gate. Last thing for phase 2, just for efficiency purposes, I would designate someone to pick up the one-shot binders. There are 2 one-shot binder almos on this map, one on the far left, just atop of the stairs behind the ballista shooter, and one on the right side behind the roaming ballista. These 2 are to be used in phase 3, but it's just more efficient to grab them before phase 3. Now, phase 3 begins when the big gate opens. My team and I usually save those binders that I mentioned before for this phase, and it's particularly because his attacks are still the most dangerous in this phase. Even if you got one head break before, it takes both horns to bring him back to normal damage. So at the start of this phase, we always bind Fatalis right away to break in as much head damage as possible. After this, you're pretty much on the road to just damaging and finishing off. Aim to get that second head break because you will need as many Fatalis eyes, which is a key material that drops for crafting armor and weapons. I kid you not, even the Palico weapon needs a Fatalis eye, which requires 2 head breaks. Your heavy artillery hunter should be ready to use the Dragonator when it arrives. This thing does massive damage. Like if you're in a group of 4, it does 8k per arrow, and there's 2 of them, so you can get up to 16k damage from using the Dragonator if positioned correctly. And obviously that also scales for duos and solos. I've seen other teams at this point Farcaster to bring a heavy bowgun or a light bowgun just to sleep him in front of the Dragonator. That way you can actually double the damage of one of the spikes, so it's really huge damage. After the Dragonator is used, you're really on the last parts of the hunt. This is the part where I'd be very careful though. He tends to go berserk with his fire blast. If you've broken both horns at this point, you're pretty much okay. If you've only broken one, I would still be very careful because he really goes berserk with those fire blasts. So if you don't know the fire attacks, be sure to take a look at my Fatalis attack guide and understand all the fire attacks and where they damage. And that's about it. Just keep damaging at this point and the Black Dragon will fall. I gotta say, Captain has done a superb job with this ending. The music changes, it feels great. The hunt is absolutely satisfying, and in my opinion, it is definitely the best last monster to introduce in Monster Hunter World. So let me know in the comments below if I missed anything or if you have any questions, or just drop your other strats. Fatalis has been out for a couple of days, so I'm sure you guys have been coming up with some creative ways to defeat this boss. So let everyone else know, and together we will take down the Black Dragon. If you would like to join in with me and my community and hunt Fatalis, we're doing hunts all of next week, so just drop into the Discord or stop by my stream. So, hope to see you out there, guys. Good luck, my fellow hunters. Ska Sensei is out.
実在する悪夢をよくぞ振り払った。